Hi, hello. How are you? I am good. It's a good cold morning this morning on what's the date, baby?
25th.
On the 25th of June, 2022. That is 21 years after the 9/11. It is me, King Sakile Mtembu, and I come to you with a topic that requires a little more understanding on what's going on around the world. So, today, without beating about the bush, today I'm going to jump straight into the generational technological gap that is currently plaguing our planet. And it is making it very difficult for the generation that has been in power for the past two generations to finally leave their seats of command and make room and make way or make space for the generation that is now ready to replace those seats. So, the generational gap, and the technological gap, um, it's nothing else but a conflict between the the generation that's in authority who lacks knowledge and the generation that's not in authority that has knowledge. Simultaneously, the conflict of the generation that's in authority that has knowledge, and the generation that's not in authority, or rather, the generation that's in authority that has experience, and the generation that's not in authority that does not have experience. So you have a generation, a well seasoned generation that's in authority that doesn't have the technological knowledge but has the experience. And you have the younger generation, the less seasoned younger generation that has the technological knowledge but does not have the experience. As we've seen across the world right now, um, there's a shift, there's a shape shift. And as much as a lot of us would say that they are specific organizational regimes that are forcing this shapeshift, but this shapeshift is inevitable, simply because it is time to make space for new authority. Right. And unfortunately, there are parts of the world that are already moving with the space of new authority, and then there are parts of the world that are still very much skeptic about this new authority, and they are choosing to opt for the more conventional way of leadership. And the more conventional way of leadership, in other words, is simply sex before marriage, get a job. These are all stigmas that the old generation is holding on to. And if the liberals, and by liberals, I'm talking about free thinkers who are implementing innovative ways of maybe of looking at the world, green ways of looking at the world. This same conventional generation is the same conventional generation that still holds on very truly onto oil rigs for gasoline and petrol. Though that is a sort of mentality. That is a sort of mentality that the current governance, who does not want to move out of seat of authority, the seasoned government that does not want to move out of authority. I'm talking about the enforcive conventionalism that is being enforced on the younger generation by drill bits like your Joe Biden. He's just an example, but he does move with the crowd, but he is just an example. Whereas you get the younger leaders like your Donald Trump, who are more straight up and would like to get the economics done because they understand that this is what's currently at stake. So currently, right now, the generational gap is about, as much as we'd like to say it is about the younger generation. I'm not even going to use the word youth because youth is just a stigma, it's just a stereotype that puts the youth in their own box of in their own box so as not to participate in the actual pilot piece of the cake. But moving on, the conflict here between the seasoned generation and the fresh generation is the method of authority that is going to be implemented. And besides the method of authority, besides the authority itself, it is the method or the perspective of intellect that is going to be applied for the next 20, 30 to 50 years. We in 2022 now, and I am 32. I am hoping God spares me for another 50 years, of which in 50 years' time, I'll be 82 years old. And when you actually look at the foundation in which I'll be building myself, I can honestly tell you that I will be building on a lot of existing wealth, and I'll be building on top of existing organizations that have existing constitutions. And you must remember, each and every single organization has its own constitution, including non-profit forums. All right, on existing constitutions, and mind you, these organizations' forums and wealth were built on not just written constitutions, but also practiced culture that derives from the continued tradition of those constitutions. So, if, for instance, I have been working in at a bank for the past 10 years, and the highest position, besides being the branch manager, is being a banker, I need to understand that in order to move on to a position that's equivalent, or to a pay rather, that is equivalent to a bank manager, I need to, firstly, I need to make space for that promotion, and the only way I can make space is for me to reach out, possibly to my leader, and say, hey, I need to do internal courses, internal financial and economical courses or accounting courses within the bank, so that one day, if maybe I decide to get a transfer, I don't land on top of being a banker. I land on top of being a manager. Right. So the manager, the branch manager, who has been there in that seat for also the past 10 years, the same amount of time as the banker, simply means that by attitude of not wanting to receive a promotion at a different area, at a different bank, at a larger bank, the attitude here is gatekeeping. Okay, now this attitude of gatekeeping is stems from the fact that that particular manager is not set on dreaming bigger, for themselves, number one, and for the employees around them. Right. So, with that being said, you can already see that this video is targeted at leaders and not followers. Mind you, there are followers who choose leaders, and there are leaders who choose themselves. Right. So, the moment that you are in leadership, I think it's very important for you to understand that there is an underlying of human social logistics called the generational gap. And this generational gap is a term coined only because the younger, less seasoned generation is hungry for authority, and that older seasoned authority refuses to humble themselves down and understand that the younger generation has the information and has the knowledge, but the younger generation refuses to be exploited for this knowledge. So, what do we do to bridge this generational gap? So, the less seasoned banker, now wants to be a manager. To be really honest with you, seeing that this is a philosophical platform and it's not a political platform, at times the world is shaped by intuition. And in fact, actually, to be really honest, the world is always shaped by intuition. The banker may feel that their pocket is being constrained, their pocket is being tightened, their pocket is being suffocated, and his or her social needs and spiritual wants, believe it or not, are not being met with the confidence that a promotion brings. So the banker will be forced to make a choice. Either get a transfer to another bank as a branch manager, obviously after weighing their experience and the documents and qualifications that they have, or quit the job entirely, start afresh, and start a new career that they feel they are worthy of. And as much as we would like to blame organizations, as much as we would like to blame the governments, I love the government, don't I? I am the government, that's why. As much as we'd like to blame the government, as much as we would like to as much as we'd like to blame cults, as much as we like to blame all these establishments that had pledged to give us the power. At the end of the day, the power comes from the decision that you make. And today, there's a girl crossing the river in order to go to school. And at exactly the same time, there's someone who's sending in their business proposal via email. So at the end of the day, it's the decisions that we make. That same girl still makes a decision to cross that river. That same girl still makes a decision to fail at school after crossing that river. As much as we would like to blame these establishments that I said will be building the next 20 to 50 years on their philosophies and on their constitutions, but we must remember that as the younger, less seasoned generation, we will have the authority to change these constitutions. And when we finally change these constitutions that we change, that will now be finally implemented worldwide, these constitutions will not be constitutions that are flexible. These constitutions, we expect them not to be constitutions that instill and condone nepotism. These constitutions are not constitutions that we expect will condone bribery and corruption. These constitutions are not constitutions that will condone less discipline or easier pass marks at schools. These constitutions are not constitutions that will condone crime and protect criminal constitutions that will protect criminals. Actually, to be really honestly speaking, looking at the state of the world, I think these constitutions should be looking towards reinstating the death penalty. And if these constitutions of the younger generation are afraid of speaking out against the truth that the seasoned generation has always wanted to re-implement, which is the truth of reinstating the death penalty. If the younger generation cannot own up to such notions, then clearly the generational gap is going to be more confused than a chameleon or a smarty box.